Hey everyone, Dan here, and it's Friday morning. It's Friday. It's still morning here. It's 11:33, and I have watched the new Falcon and Winter Soldier twice now. Once at midnight last night, LA time, and again at about 5 this morning before I had to take my mom over to the doctor's appointment. So I am back, and I'm ready to talk about the show. I've collected all my thoughts. I've put them together. And we're going to go through a breakdown of the episode and where I think we're going. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw up a spoiler banner because, that needs to be up definitely for this one. This is a huge, huge episode. And then I'm going to throw a picture up because I always draw a picture, but this one's a little graphic, a little spoilery, but I think it's a perfect picture to put up. So let's go ahead and put that up there and do the half and half side there. Yeah. What a way to end an episode, huh? That's pretty crazy. All right. I'm going to break this episode down, and you guys can throw your questions as I go along, and I will try to answer them and get to them as you go. But this is definitely the spoiler warning going on. And here we go. Okay, the episode starts off 6 years ago as AO is testing Bucky with the code words, the trigger words from when he was a Hydra assassin, when he was a Winter Soldier. And she tells him that, look, I'm not going to let you hurt anybody if it doesn't work, but it's time to test it. And they go through, and you hear the Winter Soldier song or theme playing it the whole time, and you're watching him as he's fighting against it and fighting against it. And finally, the last word comes out, and he's still him. He's free. The deprogramming has worked. And you see him just stunned and amazed. And it is this incredibly emotional scene that Sebastian Stan pulls off with Florence. I should know her name off the top of my head. Florence Kasumba. And it's just a great scene. And it shows how close those two are. Which and she says, "You're free, you're free," and then we cut to modern, and it's her going, "Why did you free Zemo?" And you see the anger and betrayal in her because Zemo killed T'Chaka. Zemo killed somebody who was under her watch. It was her job to protect the king, and Zemo killed him, and that just crushes her, and she wants Zemo, and Bucky tries to explain that he's just a means to an end, that they need him. And she says, you have 8 hours, White Wolf, and that they will be back for him. And there's no negotiating. There's like, well, no, I need a little more than that. No, 8 hours, that's it. And I think that's still kind of nice right there. I mean, this guy did kill the king. Now, he heads back to where they're staying at Zemo's place. And the trio find out about the GRC depot bombing that Carly did and the Flag Smashers did. And Zemo goes off about how the whole concept of a super soldier leads to supremacy or supremacist beliefs. And that by believing your country is supreme leads to believing other countries are inferior and that they don't deserve the same rights you believe in, that you believe you deserve. And I can see where his line of thinking is. And that's the thing about this episode, is that there's nobody who is just hard, fast, evil, or good. Everybody has these shades of gray. And if you listen to them, you can understand how they could believe themselves to be a good person because they believe in what they're saying. And you can get behind what they're saying, but not their actions. Their motives can be relatable while you still detest their actions. And I think that's the big thing behind this episode, is to separate, that you can't separate motives from actions. They're one and the same. What makes you do something and what you do is not divorced of each other. They have to be taken together. Now, he pretty much says that nationalism leads to fascism. And that parallels a lot of some of the things going on in the real world. And I think that's what's fascinating by this whole series, whether it's the plight of the African American, it's the current political climate, the the hate that's going around not only in our country but the world. That a lot of that is mirrored in this series, and I think it shows what Marcus Spellman is doing as the head writer, and Derek Kolstad, who wrote this particular episode, how much they're pulling politics in without it being the way they're framing it. It's still telling a story. They're not. It doesn't feel like we're being preached at, but they're also getting their point across, which is important. So I'm really fascinated by that, and I think it's some really well done writing. And while Kolstad wrote the last episode, which was a lot of people equated it to John Wick, and he, of course, is the John Wick creator and writer. So you kind of get that. But this one, it's much more depth. It's deeper, it's darker, it's much more gray area, like I said, and it's just really well written. It's maybe one of the better written series. There's still some issues with the overall plot. And again, I think it's because they had to delete a entire subplot that was important, and they're trying to work around that with reshoots. So there's still these little moments that don't fit. But overall, I thought this was incredibly well written for the messaging behind it and the meaning behind it. Now, Sam gets this idea, and he says, when my TT died, and they gave him crap for TT. Well, TT is his aunt, and when she died, they had a big funeral service for her. It lasted about a week. And he says, well, with Doña Madani being so popular, perhaps there's going to be a funeral or a memorial. And they decide to go to see if they can figure out where that's going to be and try to find Carly there. And Zemo has this odd moment that he turns to Sam and says, your TT would be proud of you. And I in the oddest way, I think Zemo respects Sam, because Sam isn't a super soldier. He wasn't part of the Avengers when everything fell. He's just a guy trying to make a difference and trying to help people. And I think Zemo actually respects that. And it comes across a couple times. Later on, there's a moment that Zemo asks him if Sam would take the super soldier serum if it was offered to him. And without hesitation, Sam said no. And Zemo noted that and was impressed by that. And I think that there is a connection between the two of them, which I think it's more Zemo impressed with Sam than Sam impressed with Zemo. But at one point, Sam even defends Zemo by saying that he has been more helpful and useful on the case than Walker had been. So that's pretty fascinating, too, seeing how the two of them are interacting. There's also a good funny moment or a good line when he's talking about how it leads to supremacy and fascism and stuff. Zemo says, that's what leads to the Nazis and to Ultron and to the Avengers. And Sam goes, hey, those are our friends. And Bucky in the background goes, the Avengers, not the Nazis. I just thought that was kind of fun. So they head to the refugee camp. Or before they get to the refugee camp, we go over and visit with the Flag Smashers. And we find out that the world's reaction to the bombing of the GRC depot is to enact something called the Patch Act, which strengthens border security and makes border crossing tougher, which is the exact opposite of what the Flag Smashers want. They want everyone to live in one world where they can, because, and we find out in this episode that part of what happened was when everybody disappeared, there was all this open space in the world. There was all these jobs, these things that needed to be done, countries that were struggling because they didn't have people. So someone like Carly, who was young and didn't really have anything, could then go to a country and they would give her a job and a place to live. And for 5 years, she'd be building up this life. And that's what all the Flag Smashers did. That's what all these people in these And they're displacement camps, not refugee camps. They even call it out that they're not refugees because they have nothing to take refuge from. They've been displaced. And that's the thing, is that these people were building their lives, and then suddenly these other people come back, and now it's like, say you're working and your boss has a car accident and it's severe and he's out for 6 months. And while he's gone, they move you up to his spot because that job needs to be done. And they bring someone else in to your spot because that job still needs to be done. And then 6 months later, your boss, through no fault of his own, who's been off work for that time, is suddenly healthy enough to come back. Well, now you've got 3 people to do 2 jobs. And 6 months of somebody building their lives, one of these people is going to get displaced. Does the guy who got in the accident, does the boss not come back? Well, he's got years of experience, and of course the company's going to want that. So do they bump you back down? Do you want to be bumped back down? Or do they just hang on to your replacement and bump you out? Maybe the new guy is doing just as good as you did, and they're not going to have to deal with the fact that you were higher and now back down again. So there's a lot of, that's kind of what happened to these people, is they got displaced from these lives they were building. And you can understand why they're upset and why they're fighting back. But you can also understand the people who suddenly were gone and then back, and no time has passed to them, and they want their lives back. They want their houses back. They want everything back. Hello, Tyler. Tyler the kid. We have a yar. But so you've got all this going on. And hello, Burke. Good to see you. So you've got all this stuff going on. And this is the motivation behind the Flag Smashers. And that's what we start getting in this episode. Like I said, the gray areas are danced around a lot. And it's very interesting. Yeah, it's fascinating. Now, so we get that, and we find out that also, but the Flag Smashers are getting a lot more people following them because people are understanding. They're getting what's happened. So again, there's no black and white here. Now, with the borders, since the borders have been relaxed, now they're tightening them back up. But they head to the displacement camp, Sam and Bucky and Zemo, and nobody wants to talk to them because they're very protective. And you find out that this is really kind of one of the bases of the Flag Smashers. So they're not opening up. They're not telling anybody anything. But Zemo, of course, tries a completely different approach. He walks over to one of the children. He pulls out a big bag of Turkish delight candy that they had set up in the previous scene, and he shares it with the kids. And he talks to them. He goes, "A dear friend of mine has passed, Danya Madani, and I'm hoping to pay my respects. Do you guys know her?" And one of the little girls is like, "Of course, yes." And we find out that, he talks about wanting to pay respects at her memorial. The little girl knows where it is. And basically, Zemo gets most of the information. He finds out when it is and where to meet her so she can show it to them. But he doesn't immediately tell Sam and Bucky because now this is his bargaining chip. Because he knows that the Wakandans are there. The Dormelage are coming for him, and he needs a bargaining chip. So this is his bargaining chip. So when they go back to Zemo's apartment or his place, and Sam and Bucky both strike out, he says, "Well, I know when it is, and I'll take it, but I need my leverage." And Bucky just about loses it and smashes a cup, and Sam has to get him to calm down a bit. And then Sam calls Sharon and asks her to be the eyes in the sky, which is interesting because Sharon still has access to satellites. And again, it starts wondering, what is exactly that Sharon's doing? It seems like she's still playing with someone. The scene has her kind of making her way through a bunch of goons. So there's still a lot more with Sharon that we haven't found out yet that still needs to be figured out. And we've only got 2 episodes after this. So And we're running out of time. So big questions like who's the power broker, stuff like that, those are going to need answers. And we haven't really met that many people that could be the power broker. So it's either an established character from the past, like say Arnim Zola, Red Skull, something like that, the leader, or it's going to be somebody like Sharon Carter. It's the only thing that makes sense. Now, so Sharon is willing to go on, but Sharon tells him, look, the power broker went apeshit when he found out that Nagel was dead, and you need to hurry up and find Carly because it's going to hit the fan. So that now they've got another ticking clock. There's all these ticking clocks going on. They've got 8 hours to find before the Wakandans come back for Zemo. They've got this thing going on today for Carly, and in which case they might lose their lead. And now they've got the power broker who's going to come down on them too. So all these things are turning this into a major ticking clock series. Now, before the funeral, Carly heads to where they hid the vials of super soldier serum. And when she pulls it out, we see the packet. It's like a fanny pack. And it pretty much looks like all 12 remaining vials are there. I mean, we know that they used 8 and there was 20 total. And it looks like they're set up for 10 on each side, where the one side's full and there's 2 on the other side. Now, we see the first top row. There would be another row of 5 underneath. Were all of them full? I guess we have to assume that. So it looks like all 12 are there. So she gets those. And we find out that Nico, the guy she's with, another one of the Flag Smashers, grew up a Captain America fan, but he kind of looks at Carly as being what the modern world needs in a Captain America. Somebody who looks like the people that she's fighting for and who is willing to do the things that need to be done. Now, Cap was much more blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and willing to do what was necessary, but he had his limits, and Carly doesn't seem to have those limits. So at least one of her Flag Smashers seems to be okay with what she's doing and how she's escalating. Now, as Sam and Bucky and Zemo head out to the memorial, Walker and Hoskins catch up, and Walker's pissed. But the thing is that Walker seems to be on the verge of losing it through all of this episode. He is angry, and it seems to be building. We got a little bit in episode 2. We got more of it, as it seems to be increasing. Do you know who I am? Here it seems to build to he's confronting everybody. And that's why I used to think that he had already been enhanced. Well, we find out for sure that he had not been enhanced in this episode. I mean, they had said he wasn't, but it kind of just all the anger issues that he kept coming up with made me think that he was reacting because they were a little extreme. Well, turns out those are him, which is horrible because if he gets the serum, hint, hint, that's just going to make that worse. So keep that in mind. But they track him down, and Sam's like, look, I want to talk to Carly. I want to try to turn her around. I want to try to reason with her and get a chance to see if we can end this without any confrontation. And Walker is, no way, this is not going on. I'm not going to let you go in there with super soldiers and all this stuff. And again, that's another hint that he is starting to have a real issue with the super soldiers. I think he feels inadequate and a bit jealous of the fact that here he is trying to fill in for Captain America, to be the new Captain America, but he doesn't have all the tools that Steve Rogers did. He's not a super soldier. So he's at a disadvantage, and he's kind of trying, he's constantly trying to punch his way up, and it's not working for him. He's having a rough time. He's frustrated, and it's coming through. Well, Hoskins, who is his voice of reason, is his guy to calm shit down, tells him, dude, no, let's give Sam a chance. I mean, and let's applaud the writers for bringing up the fact that, yeah, this is what Sam does. Sam was a grief counselor long before he became an Avenger, before he hooked up with Captain America. He was working with soldiers with PTSD and stuff like that. So this is definitely in Sam's wheelhouse. So it makes sense for him to go and try to talk to her and try to do it alone when it's non-threatening. But Walker begrudgingly goes, fine, you get 10 minutes. And then, they stay outside and he handcuffs Zemo to a big machine. I'm not sure what it is, but when they go inside. And I like the fact that Zemo actually pays the little girl who takes him there. It's like, here, this is for your family. And it looked like it was about 500, I don't know, maybe euros. I don't know what the currency was, but it looked to be substantial and that it would really help that family. So again, good on Zemo for that. So again, gray areas, all these characters are gray areas. You can see things they do and you go, well, that's kind of good, So at the funeral, Carly gives a speech and she looks up and she sees that she sees Sam and, realizes he's there, but doesn't break. And the speech she gives kind of parallels the one that Sharon gave at Peggy Carter's funeral about, standing up and not moving when people tell you to move. And it kind of drives home maybe the connection between Carly and Sharon, because I don't know, I still get the feeling that maybe Sharon is working with the Flag Smashers. But she gives a speech and then she sticks around and has that talk with Sam. And it's a good conversation between the two of them because you really get a feeling of what's going on between the two. And you kind of get a chance to really connect with her, which is good. But she, he pushes her buttons at the same time and makes her even question herself. He brings up what Zemo said about, the super soldiers leading to supremacy and stuff like that. And she tries to defend herself, and in doing so, comes across sounding exactly the way she doesn't want to sound. But it seems like he's actually getting through to her. But through all of this, Walker is just pacing and can't be patient and gets to the point where he just decides to rush in, and he's giving Bucky crap about your partner's in there and with super soldiers, you're not going to back him up. The blood's going to be on your hands, which turns out to be a big foreshadowing. But he finally goes in, and while all this is happening, Zemo gets himself out of the handcuffs and disappears. Well, when he rushes in, it all goes to hell. And Carly tries to run, and it goes into a fight. And where they all get separated and fighting and stuff. And these kids are still not super. So Bucky does pretty good, but the rest of them are still having a hard time with super soldiers. Carly gets away, and Zemo finds her and shoots her multiple times and knocks, and she ends up losing the fanny pack of serum, and it crashes on the ground, and Zemo looks down and sees it and just stomps it. Just starts breaking vial after vial after vial, which is exactly what his character would do, because his whole goal is to prevent super soldiers. He's already killed the guy who made it. Here are the last vials. He does this. He has done. All that's left are the actual living super soldiers. And he's smashing them away, and he's moving along until he gets a vibranium shield to the face thrown by Walker and knocks him out. And Walker comes up, looks at all the stuff on the ground, and out of the corner of his eye, he sees one last vial, unbroken. And he picks it up, stares at it for a minute, and then drops it in his pocket. Of course, the Flag Smashers get away. Carly gets away. And Walker's pissed, so when they head back to Zemo's place, Walker and Hoskins show up with like, well, we're going to arrest Zemo now. And before they can even defend that, and that's where Sam says, look, he's been more helpful than you have, and we're going to need all hands to finish this up. Well, before they can do much else, the Dora Milaje show up. And, of course, Walker does not handle it well. He tries the whole, hi, I'm John Walker, Captain America. Yeah, let's talk this out. And then, and he mentions how he doesn't think the Dora Milaje have jurisdiction. And Io has another great line. She's the same one that had the move or be moved to Black Widow in Civil War. Here she says, the Dora Milaje have jurisdiction wherever the Dora Milaje find themselves. Which, with all the talk about supremacy and, nationalism leading to fascism. Kind of an interesting line. She, and he tries to put his hand on her shoulder. Maybe we got off on the wrong foot. And of course, that leads to a fight. And the Dora Milaje are kicking their butt. Both Walker and Hoskins are just getting beaten around. And Sam says, we should do something. And Bucky goes, looking good, Walker. And that's not what Sam meant. That's probably one of the only 2 jokes in the entire episode. That's how dark and dour this episode is. But it's a pretty good line. And they end up jumping in, but they're more just trying to stop the fight. And at one point, Io confronts Bucky and hits his shoulder in like 3 points, and his arm falls off. And he's not happy about that at all. I mean, at all. And Falcon, Sam asked him, did you know that would do that? And he's like, no. And he puts it back on, it reconnects. But while all this is going on, Zemo's just kind of watching. He's having a drink. He makes his way over to the bathroom, closes the door. And then once the Dora Milaje, they've got everybody kind of out of the way, and they go over to get Zemo. They open the door, and he's dropped through a drain in the floor and is gone. And Sam calls it pulling an El Chapo, which is exactly that. Hello, EJ. How you doing? Thanks for popping on. So Zemo's gone. The Dora Milaje just go, we're out of here. The guy we want's gone. And they just give Walker back the shield. Like, we don't need it. And they leave. Well, this just adds to Walker's feeling of inadequacy. Like he is just not living up to what he's supposed to, his expectations, or the expectations. Good question, EJ. He says, why do you think the Dora Milaje went so easy on Bucky? Absolutely. I think that the reason they went so easy on him because they consider him part of it. I mean, he's the White Wolf. He's kind of connected to them now. I think he and Io have a relationship of sorts. She's the one that helped deprogram him along with Shuri. And I think as long as they got Zemo, that's all they cared about. Bucky didn't try to fight them. He tried to stop the fight. So I think that's why it was a little lesser on him. All they wanted to do was take him out of it. He seemed like a child put his hand in the cookie jar. A little bit, yeah. They don't understand why he did it. And I think, like I said, as long as they get Zemo back or that, Zemo's back in custody, that's all they care about. They think probably what he did was stupid and not what you shouldn't have done it, but people do stupid things. It's kind of an interesting way Wakanda seems to look at the world. They've always been a bit detached, and as long as what you do doesn't affect them, they don't really care. So he took Zemo out of prison. As long as Zemo goes back to prison, whether it's with the Wakandans or back in the UN prison, I think that's all they care about. I don't think there'll be long-lasting repercussions as long as Zemo goes back in. They won't be happy with him until Zemo's back in, and I'm pretty sure that's how it's going to end. I think that Bucky will be the one to take Zemo back, whether it's to the UN prison or to Wakanda itself. I think that's how it's going to end. Because I think Wakanda means a lot to Bucky. And like I said, I think there's a good relationship between Bucky and Ao. And I think there's respect between the two. So, yeah, I think that's why they treat him that way. Because they kind of get what he's doing, but Zemo's the one that killed T'Chaka, so they can't have him out of jail. So you got Walker. He's feeling inadequate. He just got his ass kicked by non-super soldiers now, which he's been getting his ass kicked by super soldiers this whole series. So now he gets his ass kicked by the Dora Milaje, and he's got this vial of super soldier serum in his pocket. And he has this conversation with Hoskins, who tells him, dude, you're a perfect candidate for this. Basically Hoskins gives him the green light. He tells him everything he needs to hear to say that this is a good idea. And that's what pushes Walker over the edge. It's like, this is the one thing I need to be able to be the new Cap, is the power that Cap had. And that's why he takes the serum, because he's been beaten down, and this is what he sees as the difference maker. And that's what he finally does, is he takes the serum. Now, we don't find out until the fight, but that's pretty much what that scene leads to. Now, on the other hand, Carly, she's got a plan to deal with this, and her plan is where you really start going, okay, she's over the edge too. She has this plan to separate Sam, because she feels that she's connected with Sam. So she wants to separate him from Cap so they can kill Cap, or kill Walker. And that in itself just shows that she's past the point that she was. Violence is now the answer to her. But she calls Sam's sister Sarah to pass a message on, and in doing so threatens her children, and basically lets it be known that she knows exactly where they are, to the point of exactly where Sarah is standing while she's on the phone, is that she's out back by the dock. Now, that shows that Carly definitely has gone too far, but also, where is Carly getting her information? Who is her intel? Because that sounds like something somebody on a satellite would know. How did Carly know that? And at one point during the conversation between Carly and Sam, Carly brings up that that the people at the bank are trying to take his house. Why aren't you back home trying to solve that problem instead of here messing with us? How does Carly know that? How does Carly know Sam's having money problems? How does Carly know where Sarah is, the names of the kids, and where she's standing in that moment? She has got somebody feeding them intel, and that's huge, because again, that we're watching Sharon Carter play with satellites, and who would be a good person to know all that information. I'm still seeing that connection. Now, I could be wrong. Again, I may be just writing that into it, but Carly's getting this information. It has to be coming from somebody. And we haven't been introduced to any other players that would make sense. It's definitely not Zemo feeding her information. It's not the power broker. Who's her intel? Where's it coming from? And with some of the things Sharon said earlier, and how their speech is kind of parallel, I'm still seeing a connection. I think that maybe Sharon is somehow feeding the information to Carly, but then she's also helping Sam and Bucky, because she might be seeing Carly as going too far. We'll have to see. Now, Sam pissed because she threatened his sister. So she says, come to this place, meet me here, come alone. And Sam goes in wings, in costume, in full gear. And Bucky goes with him. He's like, I'm not letting you go alone. And we're getting closer and closer to them being a team. They're still fighting it right now. He's not my partner. He's not my partner. It's to the point where by the end of the series, they will be partners. Now, while this is going on and he's confronting them, Sam kind of realizes that they're there to get them away from Walker and Hoskins. And then Sharon says that Walker's on the move through his earpiece, and he realizes it, and they race off to try to help. Now, Carly tries to stop them, but they still get away towards Walker. Now, on the other side of town, or wherever this is, Walker comes busting in, and the scene where he comes busting in, gun out, is very reminiscent of Captain America: The First Avenger, that scene where he and the Howling Commandos bust in. Except now it's Walker and Hoskins. And they get inside this building, and you don't notice anything different about Walker yet, but the two kind of separate a little bit, and then suddenly Lamar's gone. And what it is that the Flag Smashers have taken him, they've bound him up, and they've got him aside, and then they go after Walker specifically. So I think the whole plan is merely to kill Captain America, not Battlestar, not Sam, not Bucky, just Captain America, because he's the symbol of what they're fighting. Well, Dovich, Desmond Chimes' character, is the first one to confront him. And as they're fighting, and Sam shows up as they're fighting, he bends this bar, he throws the guy across the room, and it becomes very obvious that Walker has taken the serum, that he's super now. And Sam even looks at him and goes, "What have you done?" And all his response is, "They have Lamar." And then Sam and Walker work together, and they start taking on the Flag Smashers, and the scene starts escalating more and more. More people show up. Bucky shows up. Knives are being pulled, and it's a very good kinetic fight scene. Everything's flying all around. And while this is going on, Hoskins is able to get his knife out, cuts himself loose. He comes down to get in the fight scene too. Now, Sam has been on the level of fighting with superpowered people. He's been at Cap's side. He's got his wings. He's got tricks. Bucky's a super soldier. Walker's a super soldier at this point. All of the Flag Smashers are super soldier. Hoskins comes rushing in, trying to make a difference. Carly ends up kicking him across the room into a cement pillar. His neck gets snapped, and he dies. And you see Walker rush over to his friend, and the Flag Smashers just start to scatter. And Bucky and Sam are just kind of watching as, you know, Walker's trying to get Lamar to wake up or whatever, and he realizes he's dead. And Walker snaps. And he leaps out the third floor window and lands on the roof of a little minivan, shattering the window. And you see it doesn't faze him at all. And he sees Nico and just takes off after him. And he chases him down into the middle of the city square, throws a shield, knocks him down. Nico's screaming, "It wasn't me, it wasn't me." And Walker's like, "Where is she? Where is she?" And he grabs the shield and just beats the crap out of Nico and kills him. And that's the image we end on right there. The blood-covered shield of Captain America as Sam and Bucky show up to see this, and a crowd full of people are stunned, but they're all filming it on their phones. And that's how the episode ends up. And the episode was called "The Whole World is Watching," and that's exactly what it is at that moment. I'm sure that video is going to go viral. It's going to be all over the place. And I think the writing's on the wall. I think that's going to be how he ends up losing the shield. Now, this episode is pretty amazing from a writing standpoint. We spent a lot of time showing the gray area of the players and how easily you can slip into the very thing you're fighting against. Nobody is evil for evil's sake. Even Zemo has motivations you can sympathize with, but it's their actions that come into question. Both Carly and Walker escalate to a dangerous level. Now, Walker was already on the edge between his self-doubt and his growing jealousy of super soldiers. Now, without Hoskins, who basically was his conscience, he's going to be unhinged and likely far more dangerous to everyone. Now, we can also see how these actions could lead him to losing the shield, and it's going back to Sam. But Marvel's spending a lot of time on this character and building him up and getting us all the background on him. So I don't think that we're just going to lose him. I don't think he's going to die at the end of the series. I think he's more likely to follow in the comic footsteps. So where Sam is probably going to end up being Captain America by the end of the series, I think Walker will end up being U.S. agent, or at least on the way to being U.S. agent. Now, I was wrong about Walker in the beginning. I really did think that he was already enhanced because of the anger issues that we were seeing. But that was just his personality. And again, we know that the serum pulls out what it is about that person. So if you're a good man, you become a better man. If you're a bad person, you become worse. So these anger rage issues are going to be a huge factor for this character. And with that, I think his character for the last 2 episodes, it could get explosive in a lot of ways. Now, they've also spent a lot of this series making Carly and the Flag Smashers relatable. But she has escalated multiple times with the depot explosion, threatening Sam's family, and then specifically going to kill Walker. This kind of pushes her past the point of no return. The other 5 Flag Smashers might be salvageable now. I mean, we know that 2 are already dead, so there's 6 total left. But none of them, except for maybe Dovich, actually has shown even an ounce of remorse. He was upset when he saw the explosion and realized there were still people in the building. None of the others seem to be questioning her actions. So could Dovich be saved? Will any of them be saved, or will they all end up dead by the end of this? And one of the big questions from the episode, I brought this up earlier, and we really need an answer to it, is Carly's information source. She knows about Sam's family and his financial troubles and about being declined at the bank. She has someone feeding her intel, and we really need to find out who that is, because, I mean, she knew Nagel was dead, like, instantly. So, again, I kind of lean to that being Sharon, because it's the only character that makes sense that's active, and we're 4 episodes of 6 in. So how are we going to suddenly be introduced to another character? And I could see the power broker. The power broker is going to need to be someone we've already met. 2 episodes is a little late. The last 2 episodes are a little late to actually introduce the power broker. We've never seen the person. So it's Sharon or Ross or Arnim Zola, the Red Skull, the leader. It's someone that has background, hang on a sec, has a legacy to them. It's someone that when we see it, go, oh, this is the power broker, we don't have to be introduced to them. We already know them. Unless this is the first time you're watching the series, in which case there'll probably be a quick explanation. But it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be somebody completely brand new that we've never seen before. It doesn't make sense. Now, going forward, I think Walker's going to go off the reservation, and we're going to end up having Sam and Bucky now responsible for taking down him and the Flag Smashers. Zemo's job is kind of done here. His whole thing was, his interest was stopping the serum. He's killed Nagel. He's destroyed all the existing vials, with the exception of the one that Walker took. So he's not really a player anymore. Now, they could bring him back and use him for other things, but at this point, it almost makes sense to put him off to the side and deal with him at the end. And that whole, maybe the Bucky tracks him down at the Sokovia Memorial and then takes him to Wakanda or takes him back to jail. I think that, and the whole Sam working out at the end with the shield, I think all of that is the end. I think because of so much stuff they've had to cut and reshoot because of the dropped plot line, if that is a thing, then I think they had to pull scenes from the end of the series that wouldn't give away too much. And Sam's not going to, I think Sam's not going to get the shield till the very end. He's not going to become Captain America until the very end. And when we see him working out and talking to Bucky, it's them meeting at the end and deciding that they're going to work together and be partners. Now, so that's what I think is happening. I think they're going to have to take out the Flag Smashers, and they're going to have to stop Walker. Now, I don't think they're going to kill him. I think he's going to end up being U.S. agent by the end of this. But that's where I think the series is going to go. We're going to have the reveal of who Power Broker is. We'll find out what's going on with Sharon. We'll find out who Carly's information. Well, I hope we find out. I hope it doesn't turn out to be the same thing as the Witness Protection Program guy on WandaVision. I hope these are the answers we get. And who gets the shield. So, all right, guys, that is my review. What did you guys think? Did this episode work for you guys? Was it too slow, or was it too dour? Was it too serious? Did you miss the comedy, or was it the right thing to kind of put that aside, the buddy cop thing aside, and focus on the action and focus on what was going on? I think they've done a really good job here myself. I think it's a strong episode, and it really nails things. So I like to see I can't wait to see how this ends. I mean, we got 2 episodes left. We're into the 3rd act. We've got the climax coming, and the revelations, and then we're going to have the series wrapped up, and then we'll be sitting around a few weeks waiting for Loki to show up while watching The Bad Batch. So hope you guys liked this review. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. I'd appreciate it. Thank you for jumping in. Thank you for your questions and your hellos. And I hope you all have a great Friday. I will be back Sunday night with Pop Go the Writers with Paul Story, where we'll break down, we'll talk about the issue, what his thoughts were, and we'll share. And I'm still lining up a guest for that night, so we'll see who that's going to be. But please have a great and safe evening. Enjoy yourself, and we will talk soon. Have a good one.